Can you tell us a little bit about how you got involved in the story? I see there's years of filming behind it. Just talk to us a little bit about that.
Sure. I'm from outside of Philadelphia, so I had known of George and Finn for my whole life. And in 2010, I was having brunch with my dad, and he said, "Did you hear that Finn is closing?" And I didn't hear that, but immediately I thought that was something historic that somebody should film, so I started filming it. I didn't know at first if it would be a short or a feature or what it would be, but so the original plan was just to film the end of the restaurant, but after a few weeks, George announced he wasn't closing, so I kind of just kept going back and filming every few months, and it turned into what you saw here today. So.
And Chef, you run such a tight kitchen.
I was a bitch.
Such a tight kitchen. I wasn't going to say that, but what was the experience in these high-pressure moments of having her camera crew there with everybody?
You have to understand the restaurant business.
Yeah.
The restaurant business is like a show every day, and you have to perform well every day. And if you don't perform well, then you're done. And for me, it was to perform well every day. So every day I pushed myself to perform well. So I was tough on everybody, I was tough on my stuff, but I was tough on myself. Because I was very disciplined and I was very tough on myself. Because in this business, if you have to remember, I lost 42 years. There is not a restaurant in the United States who I lost 42 years on the French restaurants. It's unheard of. And I'm the lucky one, but it takes a special work ethic to do this.
And Genevieve, what's the experience like for you watching this on the screen?
I think we finally found a medium that's big enough to capture his personality.
Well said. What's the experience like of having cameras there with her crew, with sound, with cameras? Did you ever tell them enough, get out?
The camera never bothered me because I was what I was in the kitchen, and I would not have changed my manners or my way of doing things because camera were there. I was a natural and I do everything. I have to admit it, she was absolutely fabulous and great woman and kind and nice, and she take all my shit and everything. You see, I was very impressed with it. But you have to understand when you're in the restaurant business, and I don't think so the people understand that. I mean, when you have a restaurant and you want to perform, and you want the food to be good every day in your life. And me, I lasted 42 years, and my food was good every night, and I excel every night. It takes a lot of effort, and it takes a lot of sacrifice, and it takes a lot inside of you to perform and to do this. This is not an easy job, and it's not an easy task to do this. It's a very difficult work. But the reward is wonderful because when the people come to a restaurant, they used to come to my restaurant and they spend $1,000 a night. I say, shit, I make $1,000. This is wonderful. And then the people, you know what always was the most wonderful thing? It was not so much the money. It was the people, they came and they said, wow, we have such a wonderful time. The food was wonderful. Thank you very much. That, I think, was the rewarding things for me.
Erika, were you fed during the filming?
In the beginning, I almost felt like I needed to stay objective and I should stay away. We ended up eating a lot of meals at Marathon Grill, but also just to stay out of their way. But as the shooting went on, I started eating more and more, and it was delicious. Actually, we filmed the Bistro Saint-Tropez dinner, and I finally had his seafood canal, which is almost like a flan, like a seafood flan, and it was one of the best things I've ever had. It was good.
The question is, how did she negotiate the rules of the kitchen? Were there any rules?
There really weren't any rules except that if you wanted to live or get out of there without any cuts or burns, you would stay away. So it was always me and one camera person. I would usually do sound, or the camera person would do sound. And yeah, I mean, the only time we even had two crews was on the night of the Shen dinner, but really it was, we just, the camera person would get close enough that he could be getting everything, but we would kind of just be like flies on the wall.
And I have a question for you, Genevieve. As the daughter of a chef, do you cook? Did you grow up in a food culture? Do you still eat this sort of food?
I love to cook. I don't know how to cook like that, but I can get by. And I didn't go into the restaurant business. I think I just want to say, like, sometimes there's a tradition in French culture that children take over their parents' restaurants, but I think I kind of always knew that Lebec would never be Lebec without him. So I didn't go into that business. I went into an equally challenging business of acting.
Was there ever a time that Erika was in the kitchen where she was second guessing, what is she doing there?
I'd also like to point out that that's Tyler, who you may recognize from the film. He had a green bandana on at times, sweating.
And there were times where I thought, what am I doing?
No, I mean, I loved it, to be honest. I love just being on shoots in general, and you know, your only job is to like observe and follow what's going on. And it was so thrilling being in the kitchen. Krista Bard, who is briefly in the film, she calls George the Sun King. In her interview, she talked about how walking into his kitchen was like walking into like an Olympic training camp where you're watching like skiers and like all these different athletes that in their prime. And that was what it was like. It was just this whirlwind, and it was so exciting. Just even the most like the minutia going on in the kitchen was like fascinating to watch.
And the question is, did she ever have a different shape to the story than the final film that we saw?
About a month ago. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, I mean, well, I had my wonderful editors, Grace Klein and Amanda Larson, and you know, the first thing you do is try to go figure out, I guess, perform triage and figure out what is like extraneous and what do you not need in the story. So it kind of always had this trajectory to it, but I don't know, like with this film, and I think with a lot of documentaries and probably films in general, you know, the first 20 minutes were really hard, and that was the part we kept reworking, because you're setting everything up in that, and you're introducing the characters, and you end up with like a checklist of like, we wish that we could introduce Nick earlier, you know, and then just by whittling away, and fortunately we had the time to do that. We were able to solve a lot of the things that we thought were gaping issues, but for the most part, it was all there. And also, we didn't start editing until I had a sense of what the ending was going to be. Because I had started filming 4 years before, and then, as I mentioned, kind of would go every few months to film a little bit here and there, but it actually wasn't until last March I got a Google alert that the chandeliers were going up for auction, and that was when I was like, oh, that's part of the end. I mean, it's actually a really, really sad film. I mean, it's funny and it's full of life and everything, but that was just so sad. It was like seeing a family member's clothes boxed up and, you know, in a place that they shouldn't be after they've passed away or something.
Well, please help me thank Erika Frankel.